Overseas General Election Committee in Singapore, or PPLN Singapura, will conduct the voting of 2024 Indonesia general election earlier than the voting in Indonesia. Indonesia citizens here in Singapore will cast their ballots on February 11, 2024. The preparations are still being done by the PPLN, the Supervisory Committee, and also the Indonesian Embassy in Singapore.
Suryo Pratomo, also known as Tommy, is a former president director of Metro TV who is now Indonesia's ambassador to Singapore, having been sworn in by President Joko Widodo on September 14, 2020. With a background as a journalist for 33 years and always criticizing the government, according to Tommy, ambassador is part of the government. Not only criticizes, but also contributes to the success of programs run in Indonesia and abroad. During his 3 years as Indonesia's ambassador to Singapore, Tommy has conducted a variety of diplomacy to bring the two countries more strengthened. Based on his experience, Tommy explained that President Joko Widodo not only wanted to strengthen political relations, but also gave him the mandate to strengthen economic diplomacy between Indonesia and Singapore. Having a background in economics, Tommy has carried out the mandate well, especially focusing on the Indonesia-Singapore economy and investment.
Because the President Joko Widodo have already decided our diplomacy at the moment is not heavily for the political, but for the economic diplomacy. I have a background of economy, so that's why I put our networking, I put our experience, and trying to talk to many people here in Singapore about strengthen our economic cooperation. So thankfully, now the result is not quite bad, because last year, for the first time, the investment from Singapore, foreign direct investment from Singapore to Indonesia, exceeding 10 billion US dollars. So for the first time last year, the FDI from Singapore to Indonesia is around 13.3 billion US dollars. Now, this is in 2023. In the first quarter, the FDI from Singapore to Indonesia is also have reached 4.3 billion US dollars.
His journey as ambassador would not have been possible without the help of his colleagues and attachés, as well as the support of a very strong team at the Indonesian Embassy in Singapore in order to strengthen Indonesia-Singapore relations. With the support of a strong team, not only focusing on 7 important sectors of Indonesia-Singapore bilateral relations, but also preparing for the 2024 Indonesia general election in Singapore. Singapore is one of the destination countries for Indonesian citizens to continue their studies or careers, based on data from the Directorate General of Immigration of the Ministry of Law and Human Rights. From 2019 to 2023, as many as 4,241 Indonesian citizens moved to Singapore and showed an increasing trend of movement every year. With this phenomenon, The Indonesian Embassy in Singapore has an obligation to socialize the 2024 election in Singapore and prepare the agenda ahead of the election so that it can run well, even though it is not done in the country. However, Tommy also mentioned that the large number of Indonesian diaspora in Singapore helped the Indonesian Embassy to prepare for the elections, and did not find it difficult to record Indonesian citizens who would participate in the country's big agenda.
The main principle of democracy is for the people, to the people, by the people. So I'm very surprised that the willingness of Indonesian diaspora in Singapore to participate, at least taken apart as a, what we call, the organizing committee for the next election is very high. So that's why from the beginning we don't have difficulties to find the members of the what we call the commission for the election in Singapore. We have twice more bigger than we are needed. So that's why we must set up the committee to select who's from the applicant can be chosen as the members of the committee. So that's why from the what we call the organizing for the abroad election, for the supervising and for what we call oversight, and also for the collecting the data that's coming from the Indonesian diaspora. So everything now have already settled, everything have already report to the central of election committee, and they have already inaugurated as organizing will be organized in Singapore. And from 250,000 Indonesian in Singapore, now we have already registered around 105,000 participants, then have already decided also by the KPU about the people who can have the right to go to the ballot. So that's why now we have already finishing the data about who is the participant for the next election. Now we are preparing where is the place.
Not only to record the number of Indonesian diaspora who will participate in the 2024 elections, the Indonesian Embassy in Singapore still has an important task, which is to find a place to hold elections that will be different than 2019. In the 2019 election, the Indonesian Embassy in Singapore conducted the election at the embassy office, and the situation became chaotic due to the large number of Indonesian diaspora exercising their voting rights, causing queues up to Orchard Road, and the chaos was felt by local residents. To prevent this from happening again, the Indonesian Embassy in Singapore has decided to hold the 2024 general election at Singapore Expo and will work with the Singapore Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
So that's why now we are trying to move it to the Singapore Expo. Now we have already talked with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs about the possibility using the Singapore Expo. So hopefully everything is going very well. So far the response from the Singapore, they are fully understand. Also, they are also thinking it's better can be do at the Singapore Expo is because more manageable.
According to Tommy, moving the election venue is important considering the increasing number of Indonesian citizens in Singapore, and there are significant differences between voters in 2024 and 2019. In 2019, there were 90,000 100,000 registrants and hopes that in 2024, the number of registrants will continue to grow. With the large number of voters and the efforts of the Indonesian Embassy in Singapore to succeed the 2024 election, of course, the Indonesian Embassy continues to carry out its duty well. By holding socialization every week and continuing to educate Indonesian citizens in Singapore through social media such as Facebook, related to regulations and procedures for using voting rights that are different from those carried out in the country.
I'm glad that the committee, local committee here in Singapore, they are very active. So every time Indonesia and Indonesian Embassy have the gathering, they also participate and also using that event as opportunity to explain about the election and what the role of the, especially for the communities, for the people, for the Indonesian people to participate and also to use their right to vote. So almost every week we have an event here because we have very quite enough number space for the Indonesian diaspora to have a gathering. So that's why that's the way to more expand. And also we use the social media because our Instagram and our Twitter also follow Facebook. Also the follower is very high. So that's why the embassy is trying to support the local committee to disseminate about information about the election. We have used all channel because once again we cannot use only one channel and directly or using the social media because from the experience, even we are living in the IT era, not many people is following very seriously about the social media. So that's why direct information is a very important thing. So that's why every time we have an event, we always put the banner about the election that remind all the Indonesian that 14th of February that we will have an election. Please use your vote and please come and join with the other Indonesian to go to the ballot.
The atmosphere of the 2024 general election is not only felt by the Indonesian diaspora themselves, but has received attention from the Singaporean government, which provides support for Indonesia and asks how the election preparations are and how Indonesia will be after President Joko Widodo finishes his duties.
They are watching very seriously, so that's why, for the example, even the Prime Minister trying to know about the preparation and how Indonesia will be with the new president. So when President Joko Widodo met with the Prime Minister twice in this year, one of the topic is discussing between them is the Prime Minister asking about how the election, how the Indonesia after the Pak Jokowi, and how the result of the next election. Something is, yes, they watching very carefully because once again, as the close neighbor, they want to know about what the next Indonesia. But President always mentioned that we have at least from 1999 until now we have 5 times election, and every time we have an election, everything is going very well. In the last election to 2019, we can see that even in the big country, they are become divided. But in Indonesia, at least the loser and the winner can be work together. So win-win solution that is happen and have to be practically implementing in Indonesia.
Day by day, the 2024 general election in Singapore will be held on Saturday, February 11th, 2024. With the aim of avoiding chaos on weekdays and the hope that many Indonesian diasporas can use their voting rights.
Well, currently, since we were actually sworn on February 25th, and it's actually already a bit past 1 to 2 months from the creation or from the creation of the election committee. So it has additional 2 months after they actually work. So in our case, we are a bit late in performing the supervision itself. That's one. And the other thing is actually since the committee members are new, and of course we need to be prepared on any technical matters in terms of the supervisions and all documents. So currently we are still a bit struggling, but overall we can manage our expectation right now. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Nanda, a member of Singapore's Overseas Election Supervisory Committee, explained that in addition to be held at Singapore Expo, Indonesian diaspora can use their voting rights through post boxes in accordance with applicable regulations.
Anticipation for now, yes, we would expect there will be lots of people coming here. There would be lots of voters coming because for them it's a kind of like event. So most of them would prefer to come.
The responsibility for the success of the election is not carried out by the Indonesian Embassy or Panwaslu, but by the Indonesian diaspora, who take various small steps such as socializing elections among the diaspora. As Indonesian diaspora, we all hope that the elections can run well without any prolonged conflict.
As for now, we are entering the post DPT. DPT means Daftar Pemilih Tetap, the permanent list for voters in Singapore. Of course, the voters in Singapore consist of Indonesian who are living in Singapore, citizen of Indonesia, and mostly they are domestic workers. So our biggest clients, PPLN, are those who work here as domestic workers.
The Indonesian voters.
Yeah, there are two methods. The first one is going directly to the TPS, the place to vote. Usually, traditionally, we set up here in the embassy, and then the second one is through post. We will send the ballot to the address where the voters reside, and they can vote. They can cast the vote, then send back to us. Well, one thing is the most challenging here is the domestic workers don't always have the privilege to go outside.
For coming from former Indonesian citizen, and my heart is still with Indonesia, for sure. All the domestic helper, because I'm the employment agency, they are very enthusiastic, they are very happy, they are so looking forward to participate in the election. And what we can do, coming from our office, is to ensure that they give the right information, the address, and we also inform the employer to let them go as and when, because may not be Sunday. We inform them that this is a small appreciation coming from the agency to make sure they can go and vote and come back without disrupting their work hour. If you ask me, from looking at the Indonesian citizen in Singapore, if they are informed earlier, they know what method they can vote. since the number is so high now, right? I heard it's 100,000. So it's going to be challenging for the facilitator to make that happen within one day. So the flexibility, like voting online by sending by post, that is going to be a great help for all the citizens here to make sure their vote is heard and recognized and counted for.
I wish the first is will be equal. I mean, it's everyone understand this is for our Indonesia. Don't make anything just in peace. Respect each other. Respect who choose which one. You which one. We are Indonesia. Who become president? We are Indonesia. Must respect who to be chosen become president. Yeah, we have people all must respect, even that is not just this person. Yeah. I wish Indonesia is grow bigger in anything, especially economy. So Indonesia will become the very great in this world. And yeah, Indonesia is Bhinneka Tunggal Ika.
Well, my hope for the coming election is everything going smooth. Everything, you know, it's always like this when we face with other people with different opinion or different kind of views. So I hope that the next leader or who gonna be the president or something, they can show that we are Indonesian. We are one. So this is something that we really hope, that kind of motivation, because with that we can come up as a strong nation. So this is something that we really need, especially with us that not living in Indonesia.
Not only Indonesia will have a new leader, Singapore will also experience the same thing. So according to Tommy, with the two new leaders, it can strengthen the Indonesia-Singapore bilateral relationship that has been established for a long time, so that it not only advances the country, but also ASEAN.
Yes, of course, I'm very confident because the two countries have a very long relationship. We have already 58 years our relationship between the two, 56 I mean, relationship between Indonesia and Singapore, and relationship between the leaders since Pak Harto and Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew is very well. Now also relationship between Pak Jokowi and Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. Singapore also will have the new leaders, the young, that call 4G leaders. Hopefully Indonesia with the new leaders, Singapore with the new leaders, but we have the same foundation that our relationship. We are very close neighbor. We have complementary between each other. We have Indonesia is a huge market, huge resources. Singapore have experience with a good law, a very good trust from the abroad, and they are also the financial countries. So if we can collaborate when we are complementary between each other, I think the two people of the two countries will be prosperous. So my hope that we can continue our cooperation, and like what was happened when we are facing the COVID-19 pandemic, that cooperation between Indonesia and Singapore is help the two countries more faster can be out from the pandemic. So now Singapore has fully opened, Indonesia has fully opened, and the travel between the two people, the two businesses, the leaders also very high. And Indonesia as the chairmanship of the ASEAN also is very important, because for all the ASEAN countries, because Indonesia is the biggest. 40% of the total 600 million people of ASEAN is Indonesian. 40% of economy of ASEAN have reached $2.5 billion US dollar. is also Indonesia. So that's why Indonesia is very important. With Indonesia chairmanship, all the ASEAN members, including Singapore, is hoping that the ASEAN is be more stronger, and ASEAN is maybe a centrality, and we can keep ASEAN as a peaceful region in the world. So that's why the investment will be coming, and the prosperity of the people of ASEAN is be improving.
The upcoming Indonesia's general election is the most anticipated election by the Indonesian here in Singapore and also the government of Singapore. The election is hoped would decide the next leader of Indonesia to make Indonesia to be more stronger, stable, peaceful, and great nation. From Singapore, Chok Devi, TVRI World.